real quick, we figured out this is a logistical nightmare. We need to have a spreadsheet that's this long to list every possible musician for every band. This is the pool, this entire nation of talent. If the attendees are supporting the event and they're coming in bigger numbers and they seem to be supporting what you're doing, to me that's a clear message. It's saying invest, improve, and grow. Funny thing happened this year that I had an idea and some other people had the exact same idea at the same time. My idea was, let's set aside this whole idea of these established touring bands, because everyone's heard them all before. Let's figure out who the best musicians are and let's hire them and maybe nominate a band leader from among them to sort of lead the band on different nights. That was the original idea. I was kind of toying with this idea, and the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, God, that could really be a mess. It should really just be one band leader and a whole lot of musicians, so that if somebody, I could have one point of contact and we could sort of plan the whole thing together. I reached out to Ben Polcer first because I had experienced his work ethic at Wellburn Jazz Camp, which is an event that he and Amy Johnson run. It's like a musician's training camp. It's a small, like, you know, at least that first year, like 30-person event that happens out at a little bed and breakfast in Virginia where people just play music all the time. I just saw the focus that he had dealing with music education on one hand, putting together bands to play at night, also putting together student bands, being aware of all their different skills, and just the way that, honestly, the way that he would just hack at a project until it was right, and just totally sacrifice himself to get the job done. Of course, it would be wrong not to mention his just exemplary musicianship. I mean, he's one of the most tasteful and just all across the board skilled musicians out there. Almost at the exact same moment I sent off this initial email, I get something from Solomon saying, "Hey, I was thinking that me and Glenn and Bria Schoenberg could put together this one band with all the same people, and we could take turns band leading on different nights. And that could probably save you a lot of money, and we could be like your whole band lineup for Lindy Focus." And I said, "That's amazing. I kind of had the same idea a couple steps back. I got to tell you, I want to talk about it, but I'm also talking to Ben Polcer about a very similar project. I don't want to jerk you around. I don't want to lead you on." And the conversation kind of fizzled a little bit. I went back to talking to Ben Polcer, and we were planning out these different bands, and he was saying, you know, I mean, we've got these 4 bands that we can do. I don't know if that's enough music for your week-long event. Plus, you know, Ben said, I love the idea of putting together a swing band. I don't think I want to put together a big band. I'm ready to dive in, but I don't want to dive in like that deep, you know, when I don't even know if there's any water in the pool yet. You know, so he was reluctant to put together a big band, and I think that's very, very cool of him not to say, "Oh yeah, I can do it," you know, but instead be real. So then I go back over to Solomon, Glenn, and Bria and said, "Let's get serious and talk about this." First thing we found out was that Bria couldn't come, but we still knew that we wanted to do it. Now, it would have made just as much sense to start at the other end, in retrospect. At the other end, meaning with Glenn and Solomon's bands. There their role in this year's event is huge. It can't be understated. The dancers absolutely love what they do. I love what they do. Glenn's big band for New Year's is a huge, huge part of the event. Just having Blue Rhythm Band for New Year's is probably our single most featured musical performance. So the fact that that wasn't even in the cards or part of the original plan when I talked to Ben just says that it was just, we were at that early idea stage. We hadn't figured out that we were missing probably the most important component. But like I said, that's why we try not to hire in one single round, but try and just talk until we know what the best thing is. I think throughout the process, we started in March, and Lindy Focus is in December, so we hired all these musicians after tons of figuring out what the instrumentation of each band was going to be, and then had completely separate conversations going on with all the different band leaders about what their bands were gonna do and be responsible for. When it comes to hiring and choosing bands at this stage, it's more like, it's similar to, again, to an instructor lineup where you're like balancing personalities, or like cooking with spices. All right, we need a dash of this and a dash of this and a dash of this, and that's gonna make the whole thing. And we're lucky to be in the position to pick and choose the exact spices we want for that. All of the musicians really dig playing with such a nice hand-picked lineup, and also playing with all these other band leaders. I'd say it was 85 to 90% the band leaders requesting specific people, and maybe 10 to 15% me wanting to make sure that certain people were involved. An example is involving Paul from the Boilermakers. I knew that I wanted him involved from day one, and I said, guys, as we're making this plan, let's try and get him in here. Paul Cosentino of Boilermakers contacted me early on and said, I always love to play at Lindy Focus. What's your plan for the year? And of course, because our plan was completely insane, I had to keep responding, I don't know, man. I don't know. Please keep bugging me about it. I would love to find a way to work you in. I love what you do. I love the Boilermakers. Just this year is really freaking complex. And luckily it worked out that we could hire him just as a musician and as a featured musician. So he's been here this year playing in Glenn and Solomon's groups and just totally killing it just as a musician, and that's great. We knew we wanted to use Lucian, a regional trombone player. Lucian Cobb kills it. He's awesome. I mean, we don't even have bands at Lindy Focus without Lucian. It's just we know that he's going to be there and playing because he's fantastic. Another example is Benji from New Orleans, the drummer. Strangely, ended up with all the non-New Orleans bands. But he ended up with Glenn and Solomon's bands. I saw him play at Lone Star Championships, I believe with Careless Lovers this year. And thought, gosh, that is maybe my favorite drummer that I've heard. I love Josh Colazzo, and I love Paul Lines. Can't really compare them, totally different style, but I had a personal connection to what Benji was doing, and he hasn't disappointed. So I really wanted to make sure that he was part of it. I had sent off an email to Ben Polcer from New Orleans, and I knew that he could put together a wide variety of bands.
The whole idea that Michael had to do this, when he approached me with it, I was like, huh.
The conversation that we needed to have was, you know, can a swing band be on that list? I knew that the musicians could do it. I knew that he could do it. It's more about logistically, you know, do you want to put the effort into forming this kind of band, which traditionally you haven't done?
I play more like New Orleans style music, which is sort of a lot more collective ensemble playing. So I don't really think so much about, okay, what's good for blues dancers, what's good for Lindy hoppers, what's good for Balboa, etc. But when Michael approached me about this week, and he was like, I want to do 4 different bands that accommodate 4 different styles of music, which accommodate different styles of dancing, so everybody gets something if they really love it. If they really love blues dancing, we got something for them. If they really love Balboa, you know, we got some fast stuff for them. If they really love, you know, swing music, we got that too. So it was actually kind of a nice, new, challenging experience for me to really delve into some styles of music that I didn't really play a lot, you know? Like, I had him send me about 50 or 60 songs. He said, you know, use whatever you want, don't use whatever you want, but this is sort of the style that I'm going for in this particular band.
I sent him all this all this 40s stuff that I think, you know, 40s combo stuff. That's a different world than New Orleans music. That's coming from a very different place.
So I listened to it a lot, and I picked up on a lot of what was happening, and just sort of what makes this music different from this music. I
sent him these things like, all right, everything you do with your band is great, but if you're gonna try to appeal to a pretty snooty swing dance crowd, like if you want to appeal to Balboa dancers, for instance, you know, here's the things you really should avoid, and it's going to require not relying on a lot of habits that your band has. So like, collective improvisation is cool, but as soon as you hear that sound, it's going to feel like Dixieland to people, regardless of what else is going on in the band. I'm not saying don't ever do collective improvisation, but you can't rely on it in the same way, right? And you know, making sure that you've got arranged harmony horn parts for just about every song is pretty essential, and that means putting stuff on paper where, you know, it wasn't before. When
I was watching Solomon's big band play last night, for example, and he was playing like 1 O'Clock Jump and White Heat and songs like that, I was like, this is some really good dance music right now. And because of the feel, and because of the way the rhythm section is playing, very strong 4-beat stuff, and lots of repetitive hits in the horn section, so that, you know, dancers, it's nice to have something to grab a hold of, you know. It's like, okay, bop bop boom bop boom bop 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 boom bop boom bop. You know, when you do something like that, and you know it's coming again, you know, you can build off something like that as a dancer. You know, you can sort of almost compose along with the band. And I could see why that makes, you know, that can be sort of easier and more fun as a dancer sometimes than highly improvised collective ensemble horn traditional jazz music. You know, they're both totally valid, awesome forms of music, but, you know, I could just see that. So it's just interesting just thinking about, you know, from a dancer's perspective, you know, what would you want to hear? What would you want to dance to? You know, and also just trying to do what's fun for me too. You know, and just trying to find that sort of balance is like something that can be fun for all of us. I'd like to do it more. You know, I'd like to do it more. It's something that I love. This 30s and 40s kind of music. I think it's really cool, and I think it adds something, a whole different element to what I've been doing. You know, you can do more arranging. You do more like harmonizing of melodies, and there's just lots of interesting things you can do with it that you don't necessarily do with traditional jazz. That's what I really hope for, as far as just, you know, what I hope to see in the dance world combined with the music world, because I want to continue to move forward and do interesting and improvised and new things, and I would like to think that the dance world feels the same way, you know, and doesn't want to just regurgitate the same things. It wants to move forward and do new things.
So I don't think I've honestly ever done anything so complex in my life prior to that project, but it's been so amazing having it come together.